Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Clean Machine Live. My name is Geoff Palmer. I'm the CEO and founder of Clean Machine. For this video is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Okay, so weight loss versus muscle loss. We want to keep the muscle and lose the body fat. That's called body composition, which is how much fat to muscle you have. Well, I was reading a new study that just came out, and it was talking about, actually an article talking about a study, which was done on semaglutide. Semaglutide is more commonly known as a GLP-1, and more commonly known by their trade names Ozempic and Wegovy. Okay, these are amazing, getting amazing results for people for weight loss. How does it work? So there are GLP-1, or I won't even go to it. GLP-1 sensors that line our intestinal tract, right? These sense how much of intake of calories basically that you're getting through carbohydrates, mostly fiber, a little bit, and some other means too as well. All right, so these trigger the brain to censor and tell your brain, hey, wait, I'm getting enough calories. I can reduce my appetite, or called satiety, being satiated by the amount of calories. It's basically your gut telling your brain, we got enough calories, we're good, shut off your appetite so that you don't keep eating. Now, overeating is definitely one of the biggest problems in the United States, but you couple that with overeating the wrong types of foods, highly processed foods, highly fatty foods. Remember, fat has almost 2.5 times the amount of calories as carbohydrates and protein. So you're getting a heavy caloric load while you're consuming fat. So definitely consuming less fat can be helpful, but controlling your appetite can be very helpful, especially for people who tend to overeat. Okay, that's the good news, and that has been very effective. So this study looked at Ozempic versus Wegovy, which was better for weight loss. So, quote, in a clinical trial that compared weekly use of semaglutide, which is the active ingredient, the GLP-1 agonist, in Wegovy and Ozempic, at 1 milligrams and 2.4 milligrams. So semaglutide at 2.4 milligrams is the maximum dose in Wegovy, and 1 milligram is the typical maintenance dose for Ozempic. So about 2.5 to almost 2.5 times more in Wegovy. And they showed that, sure enough, Wegovy increased weight loss significantly more than Ozempic did. Okay, so more is better. Not so fast. So when I dove down into the research and looking at, okay, if you increase the amount of GLP-1 and decrease the appetite, two things are going on here. The first is, okay, you're eating less calories. That's a good thing, but are you getting enough nutrients? That's a question. Under eating, if you're eating calorie-rich foods that are nutrient poor, and you eat less of them, you're getting even less of the nutrients you would consuming a lighter calorie load with a higher nutrient density, which is exactly what you'd find in plants. Plant foods like fruits and vegetables, nuts, beans, and grains, they are lower in total calorie density, higher in nutrient density. So more nutrition, less calorie load. So you can eat more of those without exceeding your calorie intake and still get plenty of nutrients. When you are using a GLP-1 drug or an agonist, you're decreasing the amount of calorie intake because you're basically creating an appetite suppression effect. So you're eating less calories, total calories. You're eating less overall, but it means you're also intaking less protein, potentially less nutrients, less micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, less fiber, less polyphenols, less of all these things that would be actually beneficial to you in helping you lose and maintain weight loss. Okay, so that's part one of it. Eating less doesn't necessarily a good thing if you're consuming calorie rich and nutrient poor foods. Okay, but this second part is even more damning. So, quote, let's go ahead and put it up on this. Here, let's go ahead and put up the study first. Here's the study right here. It's 2021 study. Once weekly semaglutide. This is the active ingredient in Ozempic and Wegovy. Okay. In a clinical trial, compared the two and found Wegovy better. All right. So Wegovy better, the same active ingredient, semaglutide, both of them suppressed appetite. More is better. In this study, it increased more weight loss. All right, let's look at what the weight loss looked like. So with 68-week clinical trial, it's a long-term trial, so this is really good. The active ingredient, semaglutide, and GLP-1s, which is Wegovy and Ozempic, found on average participants lost approximately 23 pounds of fat. Awesome! Now comes the bad part. And 16 pounds of lean muscle were lost during that time. 16 pounds of muscle were lost. So because you're consuming less of the calories, potentially less protein, potentially less micronutrients and carbohydrates that would support muscle maintenance, you now lost 16 pounds of lean muscle. Okay, so why is that important? All right, so eventually when you do come off the GLP-1 agonists, your body will tend to rebound. And when you rebound, when you go back to eating the same amount of calories that you used to, that same amount of calories now will mean more body fat gains. Why is that? Okay, so you can read this right on the screen. 1 pound of muscle will approximately burn 10 calories per day. So if you lose, like they said, 15 pounds of muscle by using a GLP-1, that's 150 less calories burned per day by that missing muscle. That's over 1,000 calories per week, 4,500 calories per month, and 54,000 calories per year that you are adding to your body that are not being burned up by muscle. Now, if you're exercising, that means even more. So an exercise muscle actually burns more calories, up to 30 or 40 calories per day rather than the 10. So now you're talking a huge difference. So potentially eating the exact same amount of calories that you were eating, say you were on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. All right, eating that exact same calories with 15 pounds less muscles means you would actually gain over 15 pounds, 15 and a half pounds of fat per year, eating exactly the same as you were before. Before you were maintaining that at 2,000 calories, but now because you've lost 15 pounds of muscle due to that weight loss that you had, yes, 23 pounds of fat, good thing. It's good to get the fat off the body. 15 pounds of muscle going down is not a good thing. And that 15 pounds of muscle means you could be eating the exact same amount of calories and gain when you were actually maintaining before. Now, this is where it becomes super important because with less muscle to burn calories, the weight tends to be regained quicker. And the weight that you gain, if you gain back, if you started at 160 and lost that 25 pounds, right? Then you gain that 25 pounds, your body composition has changed because you didn't gain that muscle back, you gained it all back in fat. Now you've lost body fat, you've lost muscle, and then you gain the body fat back. Do you see how that difference changed? They used to be similar. Now you've lost both and then gained back the fat. That's a problem. That means that you are creating your body to be in a hyperfat mode, hyperstorage mode. And this is where body composition matters. Okay, so what are the alternatives? Okay, let's look at this next study. So this study says the improvement of glucose tolerance by food factors having glucagon-like peptide 1 or GLP-1 releasing activity. So when they looked at, all right, let's look at all the things that increase GLP-1 in the body. What do you think was the number one greatest increaser of GLP-1 when we consume it? Glucose. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but that's what GLP-1 is really good at, monitoring how much glucose the body is taking in. So by consuming glucose, you upregulate GLP-1. That's right, glucose. Okay, but I'm not saying go out and eat a bunch of sugar to lose weight because that will suppress your appetite. It doesn't work that way. Isolated glucose, different story. But if you get it in their whole food state, like in starches, all right, now we're talking. Now, why starch? Starch contains 300 to 1,000, and some estimates up to 2 million glucose polymers all stuck together in a single starch. Okay, so now you've got this long chain. Now, starch is a long chain, but our body breaks down that starch and cleaves it very slowly. So you're releasing a steady state of glucose all the way down the digestion tract, stimulating GLP-1 all the way down. So you get this big cumulative effect with starch without spiking the blood sugar. This is how you can get good glucose response, stimulating and elevating GLP-1. So let's actually look and see if that's the real case with starch. Now, what we call resistant starch, starch that breaks down even slower, it's resistant to digestion, right? And when you cook rice or beans or pasta or things like this, or even eat a green banana, green bananas have a little bit more resistant starch in them. What these do is when you heat them and then cool them in the fridge and then reheat them, even if you reheat them, you've got more resistant starch in there. That's why a potato salad that's been in the fridge will actually be a good source of resistant starch and actually can help you lose weight. So let's look at what that study said. Okay, here we show that resistant starch, RS, supplementation for 8 weeks helped to achieve weight loss of 2.8, almost 3 kilograms. That's 2.2 pounds per kilogram. So you're talking about a significant drop in just 8 weeks of body fat. And it improved insulin resistance, means it made you more insulin sensitive, which is a good thing, which means your cells are healthier. And individuals with this study was done in individuals with excess body weight. Okay, so what is the mechanisms here? Mechanistically, resistant starch induced changes in the gut microbiota because you've got all these starch eating bacteria now that start to populate because they got a food supply. You're feeding them starch, this resistant starch, which we don't digest very well. It doesn't go into our bloodstream, doesn't affect our glucose, but it does feed our microbiome. And by them accelerating, by feeding this resistant starch, you increase the amount of good bacteria in our digestive tract, which also produce metabolites to help us keep body weight in check, especially body fat. And it reduces bile acids. So when you eat animal products, especially animal proteins and saturated fats, high animal fats, you increase bile acid. This is where bad bacteria can thrive on. So by using this resistant starch, you suppress the bile bacteria, the bad bacteria, and you increase the good bacteria, the bacteria that are producing things to help you burn fat more. So it reduces inflammation and it restores the intestinal barrier so you don't get leaky gut syndrome because all this bile acid bacteria from eating dense animal proteins and animal fats. This can cause a leaky gut and allow toxins to get into the body, which then the body will surround the toxins with fat and water and store them because it can't process them all too much, and then you actually get an increase in body fat. And it's what we call stubborn fat because it's surrounding a toxin. It's protecting that toxin from damaging healthy vital cells. Okay, so we look at the further into the study, and they say low-fat diets supplemented with resistant starch actually was beneficial to the host, as us. But high-fat diets attenuated, basically inhibited and blocked that. So eating that high animal fat actually knocked out the benefits of the resistant starch. So it's key. Remember, plant-based diets are generally lower in fat, especially saturated fat. The majority of saturated fat comes from eating animal products. So when you're eating a majority plant-based diet with beans, greens, grains, legumes, seeds, nuts, and fruits, and vegetables, especially starchy vegetables, these are the ones higher in the starches, like squashes and beans and grains. These are the ones that are going to feed the bacteria. These are the ones that are going to give you that resistant starch to increase your amount of GLP-1, decrease your appetite, make you feel satiated and full. But now you're getting all the nutrition you need, and you're being able to build up muscle and maintain the muscle too as well by keeping while keeping that body fat low. Okay. So what else increases GLP-1? And this study actually looked at increases of GLP-1. Remember, GLP-1 is what is based on the semaglutide. That's Ozempic and Wegovy. So relationship between diet, exercise, pharmacotherapy, which is drugs like Wegovy and Ozempic, to enhance GLP-1 levels in type 2 diabetics. Okay, so what did they find? All right, they found the results demonstrated that after exercise, GLP levels remain increased for 24 hours after the exercise. This is awesome. This helps keep that appetite, that grinding appetite that gets us to munch on things all the time because we've got that appetite consistently. One intense bout of exercise, 24 hours of elevated GLP-1. So this is one of the ways that these GLP-1 drugs work so effectively because you can take one shot and it'll last all week. Now, lowering your appetite all week may or may not be exactly the desired effect that you want. Because you may want to eat some healthier foods and more of them, but you just won't have the appetite for them. You can't get as much nutrition in that way, or maybe even the good whole food sources of protein to maintain muscle loss. And I believe that's partly what's causing this significant amount of muscle loss that we see in the semaglutide study on the GLP-1s, right? Wegovy and Ozempic losing 15 pounds of muscle. Now, I personally want to maintain my muscle, especially because I'm 61 years of age, and there's a tendency for people who are older to lose muscle called age-related muscle loss or sarcopenia in the scientific communities. So it's even more important as you're aging to make sure you're getting not only the right nutrients, but the right amount of proteins in there. And you'll need an appetite to get that nutrition in there, especially if you're on a plant-based diet where you're eating lots more nutrient-rich foods and consuming less calorie-dense foods. Okay, so if that's the case, is there any caveats for this? Yes. The study goes on to say more than 30 minutes of exercise at high intensity could be required to increase that GLP-1 concentration. So you got to get in the gym or whatever exercise you want, Pilates, yoga, whatever, do them intensely and for at least 30 minutes or more. Preferably more. Closer to an hour, the better. Probably get 45 minutes to an hour. That seems to be the sweet spot to really stimulate that release of GLP-1. Keep your appetite in check for 24 hours until you're ready to do your exercise again. And this will keep that appetite in check. So you're not snacking. You're not binging on junk food. You're not tempted when you go into a grocery store or a restaurant to overeat. you have that GLP-1 saying, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm good on the calories. So that's the way to do it. Now, let's take a look at the difference between exercises. Let's actually pull this graphic up right here. So this study actually looked at, actually, let me take down the comment first. There we go. Okay, so this looked at three different things. Using diet alone, that's the first two columns there. And the gray column is, the light gray column is how much fat was lost. And the dark gray column is how much muscle was lost. Okay, so you see the first set of columns, this is how much fat was lost and how much muscle was lost with just diet alone. The second group is how much was lost with weight loss, WL, equal diet, and aerobic training, AT. Okay, so you got better results if you combined diet with aerobic training. But look at the last column. That's weight loss or diet plus RT, resistance training. That's lifting weights or doing bands or something like this, where there's a heavy, intense resistance. You lost more body fat and maintained more muscle. Do you see the dark gray column there and the third column with the resistance training? You maintained more of your muscle. You only lost a little bit of muscle. Where you lost the most amount of muscle, almost twice as much muscle was lost when you're doing diet and aerobic training. So be careful with the aerobic training. You can start doing that. Now, if you add the semaglutide, which is proven to lose both fat and I'll go ahead and put that up on the screen. And as you can see, the 68-week trial with semaglutide, that is Wegovy and Ozempic, they lost 23 pounds of fat, but they lost 15 pounds of lean muscle. That means burning less calories. So much better way is to eat plants, especially resistant starches, in your diet. This will stimulate the GLP-1. Intense training of 30 to 45 minutes with resistance training, so you protect and maintain that muscle, and then you have more muscle burning calories all day long. Plus, that resistance training increases that GLP-1 for 24 hours, so it'll keep you from snacking as much. This is why I suggest resistance training, intense resistance training, proper nutrition, and a heavy plant-based diet with lots of starches and starchy vegetables, and like grains, beans, and potatoes and tubers. These are really good sources that can help you increase your GLP-1 naturally, keep your diet in check, and maintain your muscle. I'm 61 years of age, 40 years vegan, and this is the body type, completely drug-free. But by paying close attention to what the research is telling us, what the diet is telling us, and what the exercise is telling us. When you combine those three, you don't need the drugs unless you're morbidly obese. Then talk to your doctor, and if you have type 2 diabetes or some other disease states, please confer with your doctor and make sure you're on a program that is designed by them. But if you're just looking to drop body fat, you can achieve this in a healthy way, getting the nutrition that you need by eating the plants, doing the resistance training, and maintaining your muscle so that you can burn those same calories all day long. Well, I know this is a big fad thing out there for a lot of people, but I really want to address what the science is really saying, because it's important. I want you to get the best results in the healthiest way possible, so that you can maintain your gains. Now, your gains are important for your strength, but they're also important because they burn calories all day long, every day, even at rest. But when you exercise, even more. So this helps you enjoy the food. If you're eating whole food, plant-based nutrition, you're adding supplementation where there are gaps to make sure that you're getting the proper nutrition so that your body can build what it wants to build, can grow where it wants to go, and be as healthy and thriving health-wise, not just losing fat at the cost of muscle. Muscle is precious to us. It helps with insulin resistance. It helps reduce risk for cardiovascular disease. It helps exercise, helps with type 2 diabetes too as well. Probably one of the most effective things other than diet and of course pharmacological approaches. But this way you can do it naturally, healthy, and get great results too as well, even over 60. I'm living proof. That's why I want to share this information with you so you can make the best decisions for yourself that are informed, that are based on real research, and that are based on true sound nutrition principles. That's why I share them with you. That's why I want the best for you. I hope you enjoyed this. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It'll help us get viewed by more people. And share it, please. This really helps get this information out to other people who would share. I know a lot of the people who watch my videos do care about health, do care about nutrition, and care about other people too as well. So I'm counting on you to share this information if you think it's correct. Please, I always include all of the links as well as all of the studies and each one that I talk about so you can read the studies for you themselves, make your own decisions about those studies. I give my take on them. You can take that. I know some people don't read studies, don't understand some of the terminology, so I try to break it down into simple, understandable terms for those who don't, but those in science inclined, definitely you can read the studies for yourself. That's why I put the links up there. Nothing to hide. Yes, not every study is going to be perfect. Some are funded by different people or whatever. But if you extract the information, if you really understand what the study is saying, you can see the ones that have a true bias to them and the ones that are maybe even funded by a specific group, but still are elucidating sound physiological principles and mechanisms of action and do just get the good information out there. Sometimes you have to sort through that and pick out the gems. But that's why I do this work for you. I've been reading studies since I was in college back in the early 80s. And I really love reading the research to find out what are the good things in there. But when I saw this this study showing that the GLP-1s losing 15, 16 pounds of muscle, I was like, oh my God, do people even understand what they're doing to their bodies and what that could mean to them once they come off the GLP-1s and end up gaining not only more fat back, gain it back faster and make it harder to get rid of because they have less muscle to burn that fat off. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back again with more guests and more information on all the latest research out there. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.